Hello. In this lesson, we're going to start talking about defense. And defense with a sword means parries. Parry is just another word for a block, but it usually applies to when you have a weapon in your hand. There are two main movements for one-handed sword or stick parries. Holding your hand out in front of you, pretend you're gripping your weapon, or actually grip your weapon if you have one. Remember, a weapon can be something as simple as a TV remote, because that'll fit flat in the palm and be about the right length for the grip. The basic movements, starting with the simplest, are to push out to the side. And I want to stress, as you push with the heel of your palm. This forces the sword grip and the sword guard out at an angle. This is a two-handed practice sword, but it shows up better on camera than my one-handed sword. So, when you're gripping the sword, you're gripping up near the guard. And when you push with it, you get this angle where the entire side of your body is blocked out behind the protective barrier of your sword, but the tip of your sword can still easily be pointed at your opponent. If you do it perfectly parallel, that's okay too, but best is guard out, point in, because that makes for the quick counterattack. On the opposite side of your body, this is where we're going to use those fancy wrist stretches we did. You want to roll the grip of the sword over your wrist. You're going to roll it, and the sword grip will actually come across your wrist a little bit so that only your thumb is on the outside edge of that protective barrier. Holding the weapon, it looks like this. You can see again, I've got that angle with my blade. Protective barrier out here, point, ready to counterattack. Can be a little tricky, even with a proper one-handed sword, to get that roll. It's going to feel awkward trying to get in that position, and it's going to bump against your wrist a little bit the first few hundred times that you do it. But once you practice it, you're going to have a quick and effective defense against light weaponry. I recommend that you can simply hold your TV remote while you're relaxing for the day and practice that push and roll, push and roll, push and roll over and over again. The push will always be easy, but the roll, the more you practice it, the more you get used to it, the more natural it becomes. Now, I'm going to show you all of the basic parries, but you're only really going to need to practice about 6 of them at the moment. First, when you take an on guard, have the sword point at your opponent's forehead. If you don't have an opponent, put it at your forehead. We'll get to that more later when we talk about attacks. But you basically got the push and roll for the high parries. If they're going for right around your belt area, you drop the arm a little bit more, push and roll. If they're coming in with certain strong attacks, you end up doing what's called supine. Supine just means the sword is pointed down. This actually becomes roll and push. For the low level, if they're trying to cut you off at the knees, drop the tip, push, and roll. And lastly, of course, if they try for a straight down head attack at you, normal grip, just push up. And for when it comes in handy, normal grip, push up. When you're doing the head guard with the arm on its natural side of the body, your fingers and palm will be pointed out. When you're doing it on the opposite side of the body, fingers and palm pointed in. The ones I want you to practice: the high body guard, push and roll. The low body guard, just drop the tip, then push and roll. And the two head guards, 1, 2. Doesn't particularly matter what order you practice them in, just make sure that you do each of them. And if you can, remember, the first defense is to not be there when they hit. So back up a step, guard. Back up, 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 guard. And always try to come back to that on guard, point towards your opponent and about at their forehead level.